What do we got in the bench today? Well, it's a box. It says 8 bits are all you need. Let's take a look inside. All right, so today we are looking at a BlueSCSI. It's only a matter of time in this hobby where you're going to run across a dead or dying SCSI hard drive. This one I pulled from a Macintosh LC, and I'm going to be releasing a video on that restoration, and it was dead when I started it up. I was able to coax a little bit more life out of it with some mechanical agitation and some lithium grease, but that's not a permanent solution. This drive's going to die one day, but I got it running enough to get data off of it. That can't be said for every SCSI drive. And because this really wasn't widely adopted outside of Mac and I believe a couple Amigas, there aren't many replacements for it. And even if you do find a new old stock SCSI drive, it's gonna fail if it's not dead already. BlueSCSIs help you with that. So what is this? Well, it's a modern device that you can use an SD card and attach that to a SCSI interface, and you can use this as your boot drive or as a backup drive or various storage options if you want. But the great thing about it is because it's on an SD card, I can pull this out, I can back it up, I can easily put programs on here without worrying about floppy media or anything else. It's a modern, elegant solution to a hard drive standard that you're just going to find on a lot of vintage machines. There are a lot of retailers for this. I bought this off of Joe from Joe's Computer Museum. I'm going to have a link below to different places you can buy them, and there are different versions too. You can get external ones, internal ones. Make sure you buy the BlueSCSI that's going to fit on your application. One thing I like about Joe, and it may or may not be the reason I bought it off of him, is the instruction sheet he printed off of an image writer too. And he uploaded a short to his channel, so I'm going to have a link to that short down below as well. It's a nice touch. I really like attention to detail with that. So we're going to just assemble this, talk about it a little bit. It's not going to be a long video, and we're actually not going to use this in this video at all. We're going to use this in the next video when I finish my Macintosh LC restoration. So stay tuned, look over this, and hopefully it'll convince you to purchase a BlueSCSI of your own for your vintage SCSI computing needs. Okay, so before we start assembling the BlueSCSI, one thing I want to point out, depending on your application, this DB25 might not necessarily work for you. And not that this is bad, but there's different versions. Some versions, if you remove these lugs, this shielding will stay in place. This one, if you remove the lugs, the shielding will come off. Now, if you're going to have this on a SCSI cable, that's perfectly fine. But fortunately, Joe includes in this little bag screws that are perfectly threaded to put in there. That way you can plug this flush into the back of your system. And for me, I'm going to be using this with an LC. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So we will be replacing these, but I think for the time being, I'm just going to take this DB25 off. I'm thinking it might be easier to work with. We'll see if I regret that later on. But, so let's get everything. So we do have our Arduino Blue Pill. Probably going to put that on last with the headers for it. We have our resistors. You do have to pay attention to these. So we have 220s and 330 resistors. So let's see how clearly this will show up. It probably won't, but we have a 330 on the bottom and a 220 on the top. So you do have to make sure that you get those resistors correctly. And it looks like that the 220 are closer to where the Blue Pill's going to be. And then of course we have our diode. But we are going to do arguably the hardest thing first and get this SD card surface mounted on here. Because we are surface mounting, we're going to use an exorbitant amount of flux. Liquid flux does go everywhere, but I like it. It's my preference. What I do, you might have seen this in other videos, To prevent my tip from clogging after use, I just dump it in this little Dixie cup full of rubbing alcohol, and that will keep my tip clear. And because this is going to make a mess, let's get some wipes. Have them on hand. Okay, so very first thing we're going to do, look at the orientation. It's going to line up there. We do have some tack points around the corner. And make sure anytime you're using flux, you clean it up real good when you're done. Different ways you can do it. Most cases, a toothbrush will work just fine, and some rubbing alcohol. I might, maybe, we'll see, put this in a ultrasonic sink to clean it up. Who knows? Okay. I'll be right back. I'm just gonna walk over here and get my good Sherlock Holmes glass so we can see what is going on here. And for your viewing pleasure, I might have another camera on the side working. Let's see if we can get that on a good image of what's going on. Probably should set this up ahead of time, or probably should have done this live. So let's take a look here. Okay, it looks pretty good. And we are going to see what we can do with getting the solder on already. And just gently get one of these corners. Perfect, good. You want to make sure, not so much around the back, but you don't bridge anything in the front, and especially on the side, you have a point here right on the back corner that's really close to a header. So do your due diligence, double check, make sure we're not shorting anything out. Usually despise anything surface mount like this, but this is going fairly well. I say that now. Let's see what happens though. Put a little bit more on. Somebody's going to comment about it, but that's fine. Makes me feel better. Get my old man magnifying glass here. Actually, that looks pretty good. I might have even amazed myself. That's not going anywhere. And this is probably where I'm going to screw it all up by trying to make it perfect. That's not too shabby. Now, the reason I wanted to show you it with the soldering iron, you could have came in here with the heat gun and would have been easier and probably just overall better, but that's actually not too horrible. Let me take this out of frame. Yeah, I think that'll do it. I think that will do it. We'll find out when we turn it on though. So now, have you got the SD card? And that is arguably, I think, the hardest part. Next thing we're going to do is put our diode in. Make sure you pay attention to the orientation of the stripe. You don't want to install it backwards. Anytime I install diodes or resistors, I like to use my little bender here. It just makes it look easier. It looks professional when you do this, right? You get a really nice 90-degree angle on there, and it just goes in a lot better. All right, so we'll throw our diode in. Well, that's tight. Now, even with the bender, that is, oh. So we just nudge this over a little bit more. There we go. There we go. All right, so after that, I think we're going to work on our headers. Let's just make sure we got enough clearance. I'm sure we do. This should sit right on top. The USB goes over the SD card. Yep. I think I had that backwards, don't I? It's going to go like this. Yes. Yeah, that looks better. 1 second. Let's verify. Okay, we're back. Yeah, I was right. So this is going to go on top with the diode and the SD card on the bottom. Not going to put the blue pill on just yet. We're going to get all of these headers on. The easiest way to do this, we'll just get one tacked, and then we'll do the rest. We'll put a little bit of weight on top of this. Make sure nothing's crooked, and I'll do the outside pins. So we got the board cleaned off. It's looking good. I don't see any shorts. We'll check everything before we power this on. It's always good to do that anyway. So we got the header in, SD card is in, the diodes are in. So now we are going to do these resistors. Again, making sure we do the right ones. That's a 330. That's a 220. Put that guy in there, and we'll get our other 220. Now the 220s are closest to where your Arduino Blue Pill goes, right here. And they are labeled on the board as well. Oops, oh, I got sticky flux fingers. So again, we will just tack one of these in. Well, this would have been done already if I wasn't trying to make a YouTube video out of this. You don't realize how difficult it is to try to solder, which I'm reasonably okay at, and try to get everything in the shot and make it look good so I have usable video so I can edit it. And throw on top of that, you have lighting issues and else. Jeez. So that being said, because of how frustrating this was and the fact that this probably could have been done already, like, subscribe, share, do all the things just for this video, just to make this frustration worth it. Because this would be so much easier without the camera, because I'd be hunched over this thing like some old guy just soldering away, and it would be happy. And it will be almost perfect. But instead, I'm worrying about, I don't want my big head in the shot so they can see what I'm doing and then make fun of how bad my soldering is. So the last thing we have to do is to put the Arduino Blue Pill on top. Make sure you line it up. It does say USB over on this side, so make sure you get the USB port on that. You might have to bend your resistor packs so they're closer to the DB25. In hindsight, if I kind of ran through and dry fitted everything, I would have angled those over a little bit more. So the same thing, we'll just solder this on and then we'll get it in the case. So the last thing we need to do is put this DB25 shield back on, and I will use the Phillips that was provided so that way I can put this on the back of my Mac LC. Now I did skip ahead and put it inside the case already. Again, YouTube magic and the fact that I was having a really hard time and I just couldn't get a really good shot, but you're just gonna have to deal with that. But this is what it looks like. Really great case, 3D printed. This looks good. It looks good. It feels good. Really quality product. We're not going to see this in action today. You're going to have to wait until I finish my LC restoration. So that being said, this was our BlueSCSI video, an open source Arduino Blue Pill based SCSI hard drive replacement, and we can use everything on an SD card. So that's going to be it for today. If you like what we're doing over here, as always, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.